Hello and welcome to Hire Automation, the podcast brought to you by Hire Robotics, where we explore smarter solutions for your inventory, fulfillment, and warehouse operations. I'm your host, Michelle Dawn Mooney, and today we are diving into how warehouse robotics are shaping healthcare fulfillment, where real-time inventory, visibility, and precise order accuracy are not just competitive advantages, they are critical necessities, as you can imagine. I have three great guests to introduce you to today. Tim Rocky is Vice President of EQ Solutions at Equipment Depot. Yara Asuelum is Automation Operations Manager at Equipment Depot. And Vince Donato is Technical Sales Executive at Hire Robotics USA. Thank you all for being with me today. Looking forward to getting into the conversation. Before we do, can I have each of you give us a brief bio, maybe starting with you, Tim, going in the order of the introductions there?
Sure. My name is Tim Rocky. I currently live in Louisville, Kentucky. I am a Kentucky Wildcat, not a Louisville Cardinal, just for everybody out there wondering. I've been in the material handling industry for over a decade now, and I've held various roles in sales and leadership. Currently the VP of EQ Solutions with Equipment Depot, leading a division of automation and warehouse product, sales engineers, project managers, and the like.
Yeah, I'm Yara Asuelum at Equipment Depot. I assist companies in integrating modern automation solutions into their warehouses and distribution centers to enhance efficiency, reduce costs, and ensure process accuracy here at the EQ Solutions division.
And I'm Vince Donato, Sales Executive at Hire Robotics, based out of Long Island, New York. I've been with Hire Robotics for about 2 years now, so I've seen our company grow a long way, learned a lot along the way. I'm working with people in the industry like Tim and like Yara, helping to educate end users and help adopt new companies into automation.
Yeah, and it really is, the title of this is how goods-to-person automation is helping healthcare companies, and we're seeing a lot of automation right now. So let's start here. In your collective experience developing robotic solutions for healthcare logistics, what trends are you seeing when it comes to automation adoption? What challenges then are healthcare companies looking to solve?
Yeah, great question. I'll take that one. One of the top challenges and trends we've been seeing with healthcare companies is demand fluctuations and seasonal demand like flu season. There really is a need for a flexible and scalable solution. So during peak season, companies would traditionally need to hire a lot of seasonal labor and rely on overtime work for repetitive tasks, resulting on more hours spent training individuals, tracking for human error, and correcting errors. This is both a costly and unreliable challenge. While with goods-to-person solutions, companies can add more robots or AMRs during peak season to accommodate for increased throughput. This allows healthcare companies to adjust their systems for increased demand without making any changes to the physical structure or to their existing racking. Another significant challenge that healthcare companies are specifically sensitive to is facing stockouts or very low inventory levels. Stockouts can often be the result of poor manual tracking, inaccurate forecasting due to human error. So goods-to-person solutions integrate with a company's existing WMS, warehouse management system, or ERP system to provide real-time updates on inventory levels. The goods-to-person software can also send replenishment requests based on item minimum and maximum percentages. So these percentages can be set by the end user and allow for automatic updates to the system as opposed to having an individual track inventory levels and calls for replenishments. So this ensures that healthcare companies are eliminating scenarios that lead to running out of stock during critical time. Sorry, Vince, you had something to add.
And a lot of the times working through these companies, we're learning about new trends and new issues that these companies are facing. I'm typically working alongside Yara and other salespeople within the EQ team, and we're learning about all of these new problems, these new trends that they're facing as we're exploring this new industry. there's not a lot of automation in this industry as of now. So there's not really a set way of how to do things. So a lot of this is not only trial and error, but really just diving deeper into what is out there, what is the best fit, because there are a lot of options out there. It's hard to understand the entire industry. It's a big industry. It's growing fast. There's new capabilities to take advantage of at all times. So it's really just about educating the customer from the start and understanding how their business is specifically different from one to the next.
So you mentioned things can be hard to understand, and it's very complex what we're talking about today. Healthcare distribution and fulfillment are uniquely complex due to strict compliance requirements, and then you have security concerns. So how does warehouse automation help companies meet those specific challenges?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right, Michelle. Healthcare companies are subject to strict regulatory requirements, including good manufacturing practices, GPM for short, and good distribution practices, GDP for short. So warehouse automation systems and their accompanying software help healthcare distribution companies maintain compliance by allowing the ability to track items by lot and batch numbers. Additionally, when items are recalled, the ASRS system or any automation system can immediately locate these items within the rack system and retrieve them to the operator for appropriate handling. An added benefit to this is also real-time inventory visibility, which allows for easily downloading item master and order data for audits and regulatory tracking. So this ensures that companies are meeting regulatory documentation requirements.
A lot of the times we've been working together, speaking to a lot of these brands, companies, everybody has a different software stack that they're working with. Typically, I resort to you to kind of tell me what exactly they're doing and what they need. Yara's more of the software expert than I am. I've learned a lot from her, and I've come a long way in understanding kind of what each company needs, where their importances are. But when we start talking about software too, and we're talking about security concerns, this is in not only a software aspect, but a physical aspect. You want your goods to be safe and secure within our system, within the ASRS system. You can't have any employee theft or anything of that nature when you're dealing with these, high-profile items of drugs and medicines, things of that nature. So we need to make sure everything is stored and locked away within the system. So, most ASRS systems are a lot more secure than a standard racking. There's either fences, gates, different security protocols. That also comes into play when we're talking about the software, how their data is being stored, who has access to it, who can see it. We need to understand what level of access they will allow us, the integrator, the OEM, any, end customer, anybody involved in the process to really have access to. That security is a big talking point when we're selling these systems.
So beyond compliance and security, what are some of the operational benefits healthcare companies experience when implementing this kind of technology?
Yeah, great question, Michelle. So some other benefits, which are also true for other verticals, is increased efficiency, higher throughput, and optimized space utilization. So increased storage space efficiency helps companies maximize their warehouse space and footprint. ASRS systems specifically utilize vertical space in addition to minimizing aisle space. Another benefit is also improved workflow conditions. So eliminating strain from heavy lifting or walking up and down aisles. One of the leading causes of workplace injuries is, of course, manual handling of materials, which relies on heavy lifting, frequent bending and turning. Goods-to-person solutions or ASRS solutions eliminate the need to walk up and down aisles and lift and handle heavy items by having a robot or shuttle or conveyor retrieve these items on behalf of operators and bring them to the workstations.
These companies is that they have a big importance on, workplace environment, work-life balance of, the employees in there. They want them to be happy. They want them to be comfortable. So using these ASRS systems, it does make their job simpler. They're doing a lot less walking, a lot less traveling through a warehouse. In summers, these warehouses get really hot. In winters, they get really cold. You have to dress appropriately to be in these warehouses for 8-10 hours a day. So, by utilizing our system and kind of designing how they're going to set that up within that warehouse, usually can keep their employees a lot happier, make it a nicer work environment for people to want to stay and continuously work in for, years and years to come. On top of that, I did just mention climate control, which has become a big thing in this healthcare vertical as well, especially when you're storing medicines, drugs, things of that nature. A lot of the times they need to be kept stored at a specific temperature. If that temperature is fairly low, it's going to make the warehouse pretty cold, and operators don't really want to be walking around a refrigerator. They don't want to be working in cold refrigerators. So being able to kind of mitigate where things are being stored and where operators are actually working without having them walking around just an Arctic blizzard, it's also another added benefit for them.
When some people think about warehouse automation, there can be a perception that it's only for large scale enterprises. What would you say to the small and medium sized healthcare companies that might think automation is out of their reach?
Michelle, that is a perception in this industry that all the bigger guys and gals are hopping into automation, especially ASRS systems. On the integrator side, we wade through that misconception very easily, and that's because ASRS systems aren't a one size fits all. It's not just for the big guys. It's very scalable. It's a scalable solution, and when we get to start discussing that type of solution with the end user and our customers, we get into more specifics about their operation, and we start to tailor that solution to their facility. Sometimes it's a retro, sometimes it's a greenfield, sometimes it's a brownfield, but it is scalable, and that's our job to get into how that scalability works for them. Sometimes it's a budget constraint that we start to talk about. And again, going back to large scale operations, large businesses, their budgets are all relative when you talk about smaller businesses. So we tend to have an open and frank conversation with the customers and with our end users, making sure that the solution fits appropriately, and then bringing in the right OEM on an ASRS side of things. Would you agree, Yara?
Yeah, absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think automation can be intimidating, especially to users that aren't familiar with how systems work, or that don't really have an experience in warehousing or distribution. And I think Tim put it right there, is that's why you have integrators and people who are willing to look at the existing process in order to see whether it's appropriate to even go down the automation route.
It is important that you set a budget from when you start, researching your project, what you're going to need. A company will come to us with a project and they'll show us their operation, their throughput, their storage requirements. And it's kind of hard for us to design a system without understanding, how much money they have to spend, because we could design a system that would meet their needs now and meet their needs for a 5-year growth plan. But if they don't have that budget right now, that doesn't mean that they can't invest in a system. They could still kind of have a scaled back approach, maybe start a little bit smaller. We could design something that'll meet their business's needs so that they can maybe have a hybrid situation of both an automated and a manual operation coming within their budget. And then that allows them to plan for years on out to continuously scale. Most systems are becoming a lot more flexible in that area of being able to scale up from where they start. On top of that, there's a ton of different aspects that go into the automation project, from software, conveyance, sortation, the actual ASRS system itself. So you kind of need to split up how much you can break this budget into each bucket. And that's a lot of what comes in from the integrator side. And they kind of relay that message to me. This is what's important to them. This is what they need now. This is what we have to work with in the ASRS field. So this is where it's really important to engage an integrator when you're talking about diving into automation, because there's really no way to go online and determine what the price is of an ASRS system or any of this automation. There's no price list. There's no just set cost list for you to go research to understand what a system's going to cost. It's hard to understand what your full budget is, what you should budget, how much you're going to need. I get into a lot of conversations, very frequently, of people come and they said, we don't have a budget yet because we don't know how much we need. So it's good to speak with integrators like Tim, like Yara, that are able to come to you and say, hey, this is, for this scale operation, they could give you a range, a size, and you could talk about what's realistic and what you should set aside for the next year, 2 years, whatever that may be.
Yeah, Vince, that's a really good point. And going into the budget conversation, when you're piecing together automation as a full solution, smaller scale businesses usually don't have those upfront discussions about budget, but they do have money set aside for the rainy day. Larger businesses, they do talk about budgets years in advance, but it takes a long time to get these things approved within their organizations, basically because of unknowns, fixed costs, improvements that they need to make. But if we have conversations with the smaller scales, medium-sized businesses, we always talk about dealing with mid caps, are a lot easier to get budget approval on, because they do have these rainy day funds, and ROIs are usually greater within those organizations because there's not so many fixed costs. So that misconception about large scale businesses just doing automation alone is totally false. And we like to debunk it with ROI conversations, budget conversations, scalability, and clearly a full turnkey solution that includes ASRS systems and the like.
And for healthcare companies who may be considering automation, we just heard a lot of variables there. It could be overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be, right? So, what are the first steps they can take to determine if an ASRS is right for them?
Michelle, that's a great question for this industry and this vertical. And as the integrators focus on ASRS systems and what fits in what market segments and what verticals, healthcare is a very, very important one because of all of the stringent protocols that they have to follow to be able to operate, whether they are a 3PL or they're a manufacturer themselves or a hospital system. They need to engage an integrator very early so that we can wade through a lot of data, a lot of operational tendencies that they have, things that they've done in the past that works and what doesn't. So a first natural step is to give an integrator a call, because they will then put together a solution for you, at least from a high level, that brings in different types of technology. Us on the integrator side, we work with these technology companies, and that really is what marries things up. We can go about entering these market segments, market verticals like the healthcare, distribution, 3PL, and OEM side, and really bring them into the automation world by providing great OEMs that we work with and those solutions that come along with it.
Yeah, I think, when you're searching through integrators, it's really good to kind of understand what their skill set is, what projects they've worked on, where their experiences is, because at the end of the day, this is a big education process. You need to be working with people who also have an understanding of your vertical. So, speaking to integrators that have worked in that healthcare vertical before, have seen, common issues and things that need to be overcome, it's good to kind of work hand in hand with them. So they already kind of have a running start at, understanding what your operation is. So that's like a kind of good way to first vet out where you're going to go, which direction you're going to go in, which integrators have that experience that is like similar to your operation, to your business.
All right, that's going to do it for this conversation. A lot of information out there. I'm sure people learned a lot, and we will let you know how you can ask some questions or get more info at the end of the podcast. But I want to thank our guest today, Tim Rocky, Vice President of EQ Solutions at Equipment Depot, Yara Asuelum, Automation Operations Manager at Equipment Depot, and Vince Donato, Technical Sales Executive at High Robotics USA. Thank you all for being with me today, and thank you for the conversation. And I want to thank our audience for tuning in and listening to Higher Automation, of course, brought to you by High Robotics. You heard a lot of information. You may have some questions, and you can learn more by going to highrobotics.com. And you can always reach out to today's speakers on LinkedIn because they have plenty of answers, as you just heard. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm your host, Michelle Dawn Mooney. Until next time, keep innovating.